Good morning, everyone. Ken, first I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to moderate this panel. Super excited to be here today. The way we're going to do it is I'm going to say a few things just to set the stage. And for those of you who forgot why you're here, we're going to talk about urban mobility. And then what I'm going to ask the panel to do is to do a brief self-introduction. And then from there, the idea is to have an open conversation in our allotted 30 minutes of time. So let's get into it. I want to start just by saying urban mobility. This is an incredibly exciting time because it really does feel like we're at the beginning of a massive transformation. And that transformation really is about emerging technology in the way that emerging technology is being integrated into a number of different mobility services. And we're seeing it in the cities that we live and that we work. And it's rapidly changing, but there's so much ahead of us as well. Two things. One is the regulatory environment. So obviously, the state of California, CARB, there's a hard target, 2035, to turn over the fleet. We're talking about all new car sales, zero-emission vehicles. And then also, there's a requirement to implement a rollout plan and the whole plan to convert to 100% zero-emission buses for transit operators in the state of California. So a lot of good momentum, but still a lot to do. And we're talking 11 years, but it's going to go by like that. So folks like Sean and Evan and Eric, these things are top of mind, and these are some of the things we want to talk about today. The other thing I would mention is market trends and consumer choices in terms of how people consume mobility. I would say that a generation ago, this idea of the California dream had a lot to do with this notion of the freedom of automobility. But today, times have changed. And what we're seeing is that people are moving back into metro areas, into urban areas, and they're making a deliberate choice about where they live, work, and play. And a lot are, by design, moving to places where there is good transit, where there is a wider menu of mobility solutions. And this is going to continue, and I think the market and the cities and all the partners are seeing this trend, and we're seeing this evolution here in the metro areas here in the state of California, okay? So we're gonna talk today about the services that we see. Obviously, people are familiar with Uber Lyft, but very recently we're starting to see the arrival of driverless, connected, automated vehicles, ride-hailing services, starting in the Bay Area and working their way down here. We're seeing shared mobility is a very real trend to kind of fill the gap in that marketplace between the fixed route service and then all the challenges of getting folks to places in that first last mile. Micromobility is a thing, it's not going away. So e-scooters, we've seen them change and evolve, e-bikes, shared car services. These are all trends that are going to be part and parcel of our mobility future. And I haven't even talked about, things like AI and machine learning and the way that that will change how we tap mobility as a service. So incredibly exciting. What I want to do is to set this up by saying that the cities, the folks here, are some of the key players in the mobility space here in LA. And there are a lot of use cases, best practices, lessons learned, City of South Pasadena, City of Long Beach, Metro, that really, I mean, this is the space where sharing and cross-fertilizing these ideas really is important. There's 90 some other cities in LA County, and all the cities have a target to get to. So that roadmap, I think, could be made a little less bumpy by being able to share these ideas, which is why we're here. So with that, I'd like to begin with self-introductions, and I'll start with Eric Lopez, Director of Public Works at the City of Long Beach, and then we'll go to Sean Miller, Electrification Manager at LA Metro, and then Evan Johnson with the City of South Pasadena, Electrification Manager. So Eric, take it away.
Eric Lopez, Director of Public Works for the City of Long Beach. I've been director for the last 4 years or so. I've been with the City of Long Beach for over 17 years. Started as a management assistant, then worked my way up through every level of the organization. I was an analyst, a project manager, a program manager. I was responsible for all the coastal waterfront development, the public side development, and then took over all of project management for the entire city. So we build parks, we build facilities, we manage the public right-of-way. We're a really big department. Public Works in Long Beach has just under 650 full-time employees. We'll probably be at closer to 700 by the end of our current budget development cycle. So mobility is Public Works. If Public Works is not at the forefront of anybody thinking about mobility, it should be. Otherwise, you're going to learn some really hard lessons, whether it's permitting or not. So good to be here with all of you, and looking forward to talking about this topic.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Gene. Thank you also, Ken, for the invitation. I'm Sean Miller, Deputy Executive Officer at LA Metro in operations over our zero-emission bus program planning and coordination. So Metro operates 2,100 buses across the county. We're trying to electrify that fleet, build the infrastructure to be able to charge it. But recently, I also led the partnerships team in the Office of Strategic Innovation as well. So thinking about urban mobility, Metro's certainly focused about the mobility options that it can provide to people across the county. So while I'm in my current role thinking about zero-emission bus, I've also been thinking a lot about how we improve mobility options so that we can get more people on transit. Certainly when it comes to electrification, we support electrification broadly, but we also really want to get people on transit as well. So thanks for having me, and I'll pass it over to Evan.
Hello, everybody. Evan Johnson, City of Pasadena. Actually, I think Gene keeps saying South Pasadena because that's where he lives, but we're just a little bit north of there. So I manage all the electrification programs for the City of Pasadena. I actually work in the Water and Power Department. I work for a utility. But I do work a lot with our DOT departments as well as our Public Works and other planning and permitting sections. So one thing that we're doing is we're seeing huge shifts in Pasadena going to electrification. So lots of light duty and medium duty vehicles already in Pasadena. We already have about 12,000 registered EVs in our city. So we're really far ahead as far as the kind of adoption rate a lot of other cities are seeing. So we have put a big emphasis on putting in public infrastructure as well as having lots of programs and rebates kind of incentivizing putting in workplace charging, fleet charging, that kind of thing. We also was one of the first cities in California last year to do an e-bike rebate pilot, and it was really very, very successful. It's been copied by a few cities since then. We're going to continue with that as well. We're also looking at working with LA Metro on having one of the first electric bus routes going from Hollywood to Pasadena pretty shortly. So looking at the planning of all of these things that are really changing on how we're looking at, as a city, how to get people around the city. We're also seeing a greater influx of urban density. We're seeing more and more of these larger multifamily units coming into Pasadena, and really looking about how we can really get people to walk more and bike more instead of just taking cars to get to and from places. So that's what we're working on now.
Great. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Eric. I am going to start, maybe with the discussion here by teeing something up for Eric, and this is based on a conversation we had just before we started, which is this idea of partnerships. So, the city, we're talking about facilities, and we're talking about assets, and this idea of infrastructure that needs to be implemented where there are facilities like charging facilities. Talk a little bit about the story of the partnerships that the city of Long Beach has had in its journey kind of implementing charging and thinking about urban mobility.
Sure. I think partnerships are so critical. Public agencies can't do it alone. The private sector can't do it alone, or at least they won't move as fast as you could move if you have these partnerships. In Long Beach, we're really proactive in endorsing our partnerships. I'm going to talk about one in detail and then just tie a little bit about another one. We mentioned public electrical infrastructure. In Long Beach, Southern California Edison is our main power utility. And when we started the conversation of we need to electrify, we need to create public charging infrastructure for all the EVs that are coming, they were one of the first folks we went to. And we were really happy that they had created their the Charge Ready program that incentivized and provided actual funding for us to upgrade the network and create all these charging opportunities. So we ended up pairing the Charge Ready program with a partnership that we developed with ChargePoint, one of the leading car charging companies in the country. And I took both of those and we went to our city council and we asked them to approve, to provide us the authority to leverage grants and partner and execute agreements with them to really lay the groundwork for building out our infrastructure. We have a massive system that's only growing. We've taken advantage of two phases of the Charge Ready program with Edison. We're on our second 5-year term with ChargePoint. We have hundreds of charging ports throughout the city with hundreds more planned. So that's a big one. And then getting ready for our autonomous vehicles. We had Verizon that came to us quite a few years ago after they had sold a lot of their fiber assets. And they asked us if we were interested in a partnership with them to facilitate installing brand new fiber in our right-of-way and installing their small cells on our public infrastructure. We ended up working for about a year on that agreement. We ended up taking it to council. It got approved unanimously. And now Verizon has one of the best signals out there in Long Beach for wireless and a lot of brand new fiber infrastructure. That partnership involved us changing our permitting practices. It involved us really cutting the red tape and the bureaucracy in order to lead to a really successful case study. So I can talk a little bit more about that, but just those two partnerships alone have been huge in allowing us to move forward and really welcome the future when it comes to mobility and technology and wireless connectivity, et cetera.
Thank you, Eric. I wanted to continue this thread and maybe invite Evan into this particular discussion. We talked earlier kind of about this idea of partnerships in the city of Pasadena and some of the larger organizations and institutions there. So I'm thinking of the Rose Bowl, I'm thinking of Caltech. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the engagement with some of the big institutions that own facilities that will be those places where an investment in electrification charging is made? How is that going?
Sure. About 4 or 5 years ago, we partnered with Caltech on a company that ended up becoming PowerFlex. It was kind of a think tank. They designed about this load management controller. How do we put in lots of charging in lots of places using very limited amounts of power? I think a lot of times people ask about, oh, we need all these charging stations, but how do we power these charging stations? And a great design came out of Caltech and became PowerFlex Load Management Controller. It's been a great system to work with Caltech. We've had some of the first stations that they implemented. They still have them on Caltech as well as on city-owned garages, parking garages. And it's been kind of a new standard for level 2, right? Trying to increase the number of chargers in lots of locations. Things like the Rose Bowl, very challenging, right? Because it's a location where you have very high amounts of people coming for very little amounts of time during the day, right? So you only have 11 to 13 or so different events where you have 100,000 people coming into your city. So you don't need charging, thousands and thousands of chargers on a daily basis, but you need to figure out how to get people in and around that location on certain game days. So it's something we're looking at for the Rose Bowl upcoming, looking at trying to figure out how do we have like movable mobile stations that we can add in charging and reconfigure, right, using available power. But that takes a lot of planning to make sure we have a power available where we need it. Same thing I think with Long Beach is that, Pasadena very early on invested in charging infrastructure for the public and looking at how do people interact with our facilities, whether it's parks, whether it's our libraries, whether it's our retail locations. And we still have to think about the equity factor, right? It's not fair for everyone as far as how charging has been. So as we're building our public infrastructure, we're also looking at subscription modeling, whether it's for low-income customers who may need a cheaper rate and they can't charge at home for multifamily. So there's all kinds of things that we have to think about as far as looking at not just what we have available, but how do we maximize the use of what we have so that it fits the needs of everybody in our city as well as our customers.
Great. Thank you, Evan. I'm going to pivot to Sean. And I might start just by saying that, I've had a chance to look at the rollout plan, and obviously there's a focus on the bus divisions and facilities. But the Metro fleet is more than just the fixed route buses. There's a lot of different shared mobility services and a large vehicle fleet. Talk a little bit about the overall strategy for electrification. I know that in some corridors there's talk about inline charging and these kind of things. So share your thoughts on that.
Sure, and certainly as we're talking about partnerships too, I'm kind of zooming out and thinking more broadly about mobility partnerships. So yeah, Metro's got buses. We operate heavy and light rail. We also have bike share. We have Metro Micro program, which is an on-demand ride-share service that operates in several zones across the county. And so we have a number of different mobility services. We also have this really amazing partnership in South LA called the Mobility Wallet Pilot, where we have collaborated with LADOT and some CBO organizations where Metro provides a prepaid debit card to individuals participating in this program where they're able to access a number of different mobility options. Sounds like this is going in and out a little bit. So, Metro really is working to provide as many mobility options as possible. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are focused on electrifying our bus fleet. We also have our non-revenue fleet behind that. And also more broadly, cities are focused on electrifying transportation. And we certainly, like to see that we're reducing greenhouse gases across the region, but we also do, want to bring people to transit. That said, we have to ensure that we're providing those options. But focusing back on electrification, our strategy is, we're currently purchasing, or will be purchasing many battery electric buses very soon. We're in the process of electrifying our J line. We anticipate that should be completed in at the end of this year or early 2025. We're also electrifying Division 9 out in El Monte, and then very shortly after, in the near future, we'll be releasing a solicitation for a scope of work to electrify 2 more divisions after that. But Metro's got 10 bus divisions, 2,100 buses, another 1,600 non-revenue vehicles. That's not only a lot of vehicles, a lot of infrastructure to be put in the ground. It also requires a lot of coordination with our utility partners because we are increasing our site loads 2 or 3 times what they currently are. So of course, then we need partnerships with our utilities, with the cities that we're working within, but also with technology providers. The state of technology when it comes to electrification is not where it needs to be. We need buses with longer range. We need charge management strategies to manage our site loads. We need solutions that can really optimize that operation. And the number one goal is to deliver service, because if we're not able to deliver service because the state of technology is not there, whether or not that is a vendor problem, that's Metro's problem. We need to deliver service first and foremost. So that is, goal number one throughout this transition for us.
Thank you. I want to kind of put this scenario out there. Let's pretend we're in a room with public works directors from the 90 other cities here in Los Angeles County. And this is an opportunity, Eric, Sean, and Evan, to let's go rewind 5 years ago, right? That 5 years ago in the world of urban mobility is really like 25 years ago. So I'll put you on the spot, Eric. Say something about where Long Beach is right now based on where you were 5 years ago, and then what are the challenges and things that keep you up at night for the things you want to get done in another 5 years? So I'll start with you and we'll just go around.
Oh, wow. So 5 years ago, we were at the infancy of the transition to EVs. And we actually made the decision early on to go all in. We had the benefit of some AB 32 funds that helped fund a lot of this, a lot of our transition. So we were lucky that our city council decided to invest the funds on electrification when very few other agencies were doing so. So I'm really proud of that decision. We also, like many other cities in the state and like Metro, invested a lot in bike share. I think bike share, you've had failures and you had successes, and a lot of people had gotten out of that space or they've tried to privatize that space. We went all in. So we've actually purchased a lot of the bikes from a lot of the agencies that got out of it. We own 1,400 bikes now. I have half of that deployed, looking to deploy the rest. So what I'm seeing now is just ridership go off the charts when it comes to bike share. And then last year we invested on an electric shuttle company. And we partnered with a company called Circuit, and they do a free ride shuttle for us. We have 4 shuttles, 8 shuttles, and we're looking at the potential to expanding and making that pilot permanent. I'm really happy we did that. For years, we tried to get that off the ground and we couldn't find a funding source. We finally did, and now we have a permanent funding source that looks like it's gonna work and help us build out and expand the program. So last mile, I wish I would have paid more attention on last mile. I wish we would have planned out, partnered with Metro and our other partners to say, okay, once people get off the bus or get off the train, how are they gonna get to their final destination? Same with Long Beach Transit. I wish I would have had more conversations. So that's a big lesson learned for me. I think I think we didn't take it as seriously as it is now. And now we have all kinds of different options, but it's not coordinated. So I'd love to coordinate, the availability of either free shuttles to scooters to bike share to how you walk there, how you use your own transportation devices, micro transit, and the coordination there. I think that's where I hit myself in the head and say, hey, we need to do more there. And looking forward in the future, there's a lot of challenges there because everybody wants to use the right of way. Everybody wants to use the sidewalk. Yeah. Not just bikes want to use the bikeways. The curbside management is going to be huge. So that's what I would say. Big challenge.
Great, thank you, Eric. Sean.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, maybe go a little bit further than that. Thinking about electrification, transportation. In 2017, Metro's board endorsed a strategic plan to transition our bus fleet to zero emissions. So, that was just getting started then. But in addition to that, thinking about shared mobility, around the same time or just shortly thereafter, Metro was piloting shared mobility for the first time with its mobility on demand pilot, which was a first last mile pilot to and from Metro transit stations in 3 zones across the county. Upon the arrival of the COVID health crisis, we made some pivots in that where it moved from a first last mile solution to a point-to-point solution throughout the zones. And talk about mobility options and convenience and ease of getting around. When we made that change, our ridership exploded. I mean, we were carrying 3 times more people by making that shift to point than we were before. And now, you look today, Metro has its Metro Micro program, which a lot of the lessons and work that was done for mobility on demand resulted from that. And I think also something when we're thinking about partnerships too, really important to understand, Metro has an unsolicited proposals policy. It's a mechanism for any outside party to submit a project idea to Metro. It comes to the Office of Strategic Innovation. They evaluate it with the key subject matter experts at the agency. Metro Micro started as an unsolicited proposal and became a Metro service project. So that's just in some terms of the opportunities of partnerships at Metro. But then looking forward 5 years, I think probably many of you were in the room this morning when Casey Schuda was talking about the Olympics and our preparation for that. And of course, that's in our minds. It's not in our minds, it's right in front of our face. 4 years away from that, and we've got a lot of work to do. But what we're aiming to do 5 years from now is to ensure that we have a number of legacy improvements that are not just improvements that are geared toward making mobility better for the games, but also making mobility better beyond the games. And those are going to take lots of different shapes and forms, and looking forward to what comes out of that.
Great, thank you, Sean. Evan.
About 5 years ago, we had a guy named Marvin Moon, who I always call the man behind the curtain because he was kind of a visionary and he really saw this coming. So he had put in lots of plans and programs in place. Today, Pasadena, has either put in itself or through rebates have put in 1,000 chargers, an additional 800 or so. So we're about 1,800 chargers in Pasadena currently. So we're pretty far ahead, very progressive, I think. So we got very lucky that we had someone who was kind of seeing the writing on the wall ahead of time. The way that I would say now is that we probably never expected how many connections we need to make actually, right? So as a city, as a utility, people are coming into the city all the time that we never thought of as someone that we needed to talk to ahead of time. So Metro Micro, right? What perfect example, right? They're bringing in EVs into Pasadena, these new e-buses, and they can't make a full route unless they charge somewhere during the day for at least a little bit, right? So looking at putting in medium duty spots that can accommodate some of these Metro Micro buses to have them complete a full route, right? So again, for FedEx trucks and all kinds of things that are happening. So with electrification, we have all these new customers that we never had before, right? Typically a customer of a utility would be someone that either lives there or is has a commercial building on property. But now we have 100,000 people that come into the city every day to work. And some of them are driving EVs. Some of them are now customers that weren't before. And that includes businesses like FedEx and like Metro Micro. So we have all of these new folks that we need to talk to, figure out what they need from us to be able to complete routes, whether it's an electric bus route that comes into Pasadena but has to turn around and go back to Hollywood, right? So we have to find ways to make sure that we meet their business needs as well. So I think that's where we're at now, is trying to figure out how do we talk regionally to all of these different facilities, different corporations, different individuals as well as what do they need when they come to Pasadena to be able to do their job or to be able to play or to be able to go to the park or be able to do whatever they want to do, right? It should be seamless to complete their operations. That we're looking at doing. We're trying to work backwards from that. It's not like I can't go there because I can't get back.
Great, thank you, Evan. So a couple of themes that really have resonated is just this idea of partnerships with those with the technology, but also with the facilities that are going to host the technologies, and then just having that conversation be so important to be able to get that kind of engagement. And then, you can't stress it enough, just coordination across stakeholders, not just within the city, but we live in a metro region. So love hearing about, Evan, those touch points with Metro as Metro is rolling out shared mobility and that fleet is changing. Maybe as a final thought, what I want to do, if there's one word or one thing or one pearl of wisdom to share, what is that as we think about our urban mobility future? Start with you, Eric.
I would say, it was mentioned earlier, 2028, 4 years away. 4 years is right around the corner, and as a region, we better be ready. So I'm going to just leave it at 2028.
Great.
I'm at a lack of for words or a single word, so I'm going to say multiple words. Electrification, huge challenge. We need support. We need partnerships. Of course, we need partnerships for 2028. So maybe that's the word, partnerships.
Right. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, I would add probably collaboration, right? We have, funding sources, we have LCFS with CARB, we have ways to try to get some of this stuff done, but
Cap and trade.
but
ways
trying
do
to
it.
maximize what we have, our assets and our partnerships. So, we're all working together, but to make smart decisions to do things together that maximize what we put in as a value add.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we hear it for our panel? Eric Lopez, Sean Miller, Evan Johnson. Great discussion. I'd like to hand it back to Ken, but I want to share that in the foyer, please come out. There might be questions. This is the opportunity for us to continue the conversation. So back to you, Ken.
Thank you very much.